little political tidbit for you. As a system that we all know and love continues to struggle to actually revive itself in a sense, between 2002 and 2008, an incumbent politician was more likely to die in office than be defeated in a primary election. That is how uncompetitive our competitive democracy has become when it comes to candidate selection. And that is one of the reasons behind the launch of the Campaign for Primary Accountability, which is being led in part by Mark Meckler, who is back with an update on that effort. The statistics can horrify you. If you start digging, Mark, you dug so deep that you decided to devote your professional efforts to exclusively trying to reconnect the voter to the voted through more competitive primaries. Where have you come since we last spoke? What can people do to help make it more competitive still?
Well, it's continuing to get more and more competitive. We've had more turnover already in this primary cycle than we have in an average cycle in the full set of primaries. We're about 25% of the way through the primaries, so we are making progress. We've got a couple of hot primaries coming up here in the next couple of weeks. We've got one outside of El Paso, Sylvester Reyes, Democratic Party, challenge O'Rourke, a young, new progressive. Looks like they are dead even. You've got a guy that's been in Congress over 20 years, dead even with a young challenger. That's exciting. We've obviously got the Wrangell race coming up in New York, another exciting race. Guy who's been around far too long. His constituents don't really like him for the most part. Looks like we've got a pretty even race there with a young challenger as well.
How have the optics been of those that argue that this is either a conservative or a liberal agenda, that candidate selection is everything and primary challenge is one thing, but if all your primary challengers are of one political persuasion, that it's a different thing?
Well, and the challengers are actually all over the board, which is the great thing. So in Pennsylvania, we had the Holden Cartwright race. Holden was a traditional blue dog Democrat. He'd been redistricted into a very left-leaning district, and we supported the challenger Cartwright, who is a more left-leaning guy aligned with the district, and he's the young, new guy who's going to be in the general election race. He'll probably end up in Congress. That's a fixed Democratic district. So people are accusing us of being right-wing. They're accusing us of being left-wing. They'll accuse us of everything, mainly because they're incumbents trying to protect their positions in Congress. That's what they care about.
And if people want to help you more, what is the thing that you would like to have more of that you think would be most aligned with our collective goal, which is more competition, more debate, and just more engagement between the voters and those who we vote for?
I think the thing is to engage in the primaries, to get out there and understand that's where your vote really counts. 85% of districts are fixed. They won't change parties in the general election. But your vote really has an effect in the primary. That means you get out there, learn about the primary candidates, and engage in the primary elections. That's what every citizen has to do. They can help us out at campaignforprimaryaccountability.org, and that's the numeral 4 in there, campaignforprimaryaccountability.org.
If you look at the disengagement, which is clearly risk. And we just had those graphs. 41% said their vote doesn't matter because of super PAC money. You have those statistics, 196 people providing 80% of all the money from the super PACs for 311 million of us. The greatest hurdle, it would seem, for you or anybody trying to cultivate engagement of any kind is to make people feel that it is worth their effort, that the apathy or the disengagement from the system is that the antidote to it is engagement, but that how you engage actually matters.
It does, and that apathy is not entirely irrational in the general election with 85% of districts being fixed. But in the primaries, right now in a Democratic primary, only 8.5% of eligible voters participate. In Republicans, it's 11.5%. That means your vote really counts. Get some friends together and vote or get engaged in an election. You could literally influence a primary election as voters, and that's how it's supposed to be, Dylan.
And if you were to look at the best tactic that is being used to keep you and others like you from having power, what is it? What's my best way? If I'm an incumbent and you're coming for me, what's my best way to get rid of you?
And there are two things that incumbents do, which are sort of behind the scenes. One is they discourage the traditional donors from participating against them by telling them they'll be excluded from the system.
So don't give them any money.
That's it. And then the second is they tell the folks who engage in advice, the consultants, not to participate, or they'll never work on that side of the aisle again. So there's this pressure system behind the scenes that the voters never see, intended to keep incumbents of both parties in office.
And to keep Susan Del Percio for working for some crazy bunch of people like you. Otherwise, the Republicans will never hire her again.
And that's right. They threatened to not hire them. They also promised them plum positions.
Susan is on hot. Well, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I said they also promised them plum positions if they'll stop working with us. The incumbents really are entrenched, and they're protecting themselves.
Yeah. Susan has nothing to do with any of this. I was just using her as an example. We don't mean to indict your character, Susan. Mark, thank you. Congrats. Really, I'm thrilled for your efforts. I'm honored to be able to support and raise awareness for those efforts. And I do encourage everybody to check out the campaign for the numeral 4 campaign primary accountability.org. And more importantly, go to Ballotpedia and learn about your own primary, which is where all this happens.